Black America. Everything you have been taught in school about America was a lie. First, we start with Christopher Columbus. He was an Italian explorer and a navigator who is credited with leading the first expedition to the Americas. He was born in Genoa, Italy, in 1451. In 1492, Columbus embarked on a voyage funded by the Spanish monarchy in search of a western route to Asia. Instead, he arrived in the Caribbean, landing on an island he named San Salvador, present-day Bahamas. Columbus made a total of 4 voyages across the Atlantic Ocean between 1492 and 1504. Exploring various Caribbean islands, Central and South America, he encountered indigenous populations, whom he referred to as Indians. Mistakenly believed he had reached the outskirts of Asia, but he wasn't in Asia. He was in the Americas. His voyage marked the beginning of the European colonization and exploration of the Americas. While Columbus is celebrated in some countries for his exploration, his actions also led to colonization, enslavement, and mistreatment of indigenous people. The consequences of the European colonization includes the transatlantic slave trade and the dissemination of indigenous populations, had a lasting impact on the Americas. It is important to note that the modern historical scholarship has challenged the traditional narrative of Columbus as a heroic figure, highlighting the negative impact of his expeditions and indigenous people in the broader historical context of European colonialism. Indigenous population. North America is home to a diverse array of indigenous people, each with their own distinct cultures, languages, and histories. Number 1. Native Americans. This is a collective term encompassing various indigenous people of the United States and Canada. There are numerous tribes and nations, including the Navajo, Cherokee, Apache, and many others. Number 2. Inuit. The Inuit are the indigenous people who are primarily inhabit the Arctic regions of Canada, Alaska, United States of America, and Greenland, Denmark. They have unique cultural and traditionally rely on hunting, fishing, and gathering for other subsistence. Number 3. Métis. The Métis people are the descendants of mixed indigenous and European heritage, particularly from French and Scottish Canadian settlers. They have a distinct cultural and history in Canada, primarily in the Pierre provinces and parts of Ontario and Quebec. Number 4. First Nations. This term refers to various indigenous people in Canada who are not Inuit or Métis. There are over 600 recognized First Nation communities, each with its own distinct cultural heritage and governance structure. Number 5. Alaskan Natives. Alaska is home to numerous indigenous people, including Inupiat, Yupik, Aleut, Tlingit, Haida, and many others. Each group has its own unique traditions and languages. It is important to note that this is not an adhesive list, and there are many other indigenous people in North America. Each group has its own history, cultural practices, and relationship with the land. South American indigenous people. South America is rich in cultural diversity and is home to numerous indigenous people. Here are some prominent indigenous groups in South America. Number 1. Quechua. The Quechua people are one of the largest indigenous groups in South America, primarily located in the Andean regions of Peru, Bolivia, Ecuador, Colombia, and parts of Chile and Argentina. They have a rich cultural heritage, are known for the agricultural practices, textile, and the ancient Inca civilization. Number 2. Aymara. The Aymara people predominantly resides in the highlands of Bolivia, Peru, and Chile. They have a long history and have made significant contributions to the region's cultural development. Number 3. Mapuche. The Mapuche people are indigenous to southern Chile and parts of Argentina. They have a strong cultural identity and are known for their resistance to colonization and their connections to the land. Number 4. Guarani. The Guarani people are spread across Paraguay, Brazil, Argentina, and Bolivia. They have a rich cultural heritage, including their unique language and spiritual traditions. Number 5. Yanomami. The Yanomami are an indigenous group residing in the Amazon rainforest, primarily in Brazil and Venezuela. They have a traditional way of life, relying on hunting, fishing, and agriculture, and have faced significant challenges due to encroachment on their land. Number 6. Ashanika. The Ashanican people inhabit the Amazon rainforest in Peru and Brazil. They have a strong connection to their ancestral lands and have faced challenges related to deforestation and land encroachment. Number 7. Wayu. The Wayu people are the largest indigenous group in Colombia and Venezuela, residing in the Guajiro Peninsula. They have a rich cultural heritage, including their unique language, weaving traditions, and social organizations. These are just a few examples, and there are many more indigenous people throughout South America, each with their own distinct culture, languages, and histories. European colonialism. European colonialism refers to the period in history when European powers, primarily from the 15th to the 20th century, established colonies and exerts political, economics, and cultural control over territories outside of Europe. This era marked a significant expansion of European influence and colonization around the world. European colonialism was driven by various factors, including the desire for wealth, resources, trade routes, religion missions, political power, and the spread of European ideologies. European nations such as Spain, Portugal, France, England, the Netherlands, and later Belgium, Germany, and Italy, among others, embarked on voyages of exploration and colonization. During this period, European powers established colonies in Africa, the Americas, Asia, and the Pacific Islands. They imposed their political systems, introduced Christianity, exploited natural resources, established trade networks, and often subjugated and marginalized indigenous people. Colonial administrations were typically characterized by unequal power dynamics, economic exploitations, cultural assimilation, and at times violent suppression of local populations. The consequences of European colonialism varied across different regions in some cases. Colonial rule led to the establishment of new societies with mixed Europeans and indigenous populations, while in the other cases it resulted in displacement, forced labor, cultural erasure, and social, economics, and political inequalities. The legacy of European colonialism continues to shape society today, with many countries still grappling with the impacts of colonization on their economies, social structures, and cultural identities. When Christopher Columbus first arrived in the Americas, he and his crew encountered the indigenous people of the Caribbean, particularly the Taino people. Columbus and his crew engaged various activities and interactions, including 1. Establishing contact, 2. Claiming land, 3. Exchanging goods, 4. Establishing forts and settlements, and 5. Enslaved and forced labor. Unfortunately, Columbus and his men also engaged in the enslaved and forced labor of some indigenous people. They viewed the indigenous population as potential sources of labor for mining, farming, and other endeavors. It is crucial to recognize that the encounters between Columbus and the indigenous people were complex and varied. While some interactions may have involved cooperation or mutual curiosity, others involved exploitation, violence, and the spread of disease that had devastation Effects on the indigenous population. The consequences of these early interactions shaped the subsequent history and colonization of the Americas. Everything you've been taught in school about America is a lie. Black America.